you're hearing this, it means I survived long enough to tell it." He radioed for a helicopter, but they never came. For 2 weeks, he rationed what little food he'd packed and then hoped for the best. I first heard of Carl McCunn from an old ranger named Watkins, whose voice still trembled recounting the case. "He was a wildlife photographer," Watkins said, leaning on a desk thick with search and rescue logbooks. "Smart guy, university degree, gear cost more than most cars, but he underestimated the bush." In April 1981, Carl chartered a small Cessna to drop him off on a remote creek bank 60 miles north of Fairbanks, beyond any marked trail. He said he wanted solitude to capture migrating caribou, clear photos, no packs of tourists trampling the tundra. But in all his planning, he forgot the most essential: how to get out. He booked a round-trip flight with pilot Ray Jennett, knowing Jennett would return for him in 2 weeks. But when Jennett flew back, weeks after Carl's departure, weather and mechanical issues delayed him. Then the company found they never confirmed the return booking. No slot on Jennett's log, no flight plan filed, no contract. By the time the Rangers mobilized the search, April's midnight sun had melted into May's endless daylight. But daylight meant nothing without supplies or shelter. Carl's last radio message came 9 days in. He sounded calm, joking about polar bears photobombing his shots. But behind the laughter, Watkins noted the static hummed differently, long pauses, strained breaths. "Day 9, the log read, "no extractor plane, food half gone." McCunn had packed 10 days worth of freeze-dried meals and a single shotgun for defense. He stashed his gear in an abandoned trapper's cabin. A rickety log leaned to what Watkins described as one step up from a pile of sticks, but spring rain rotted the roof. Rainwater pooled into his sleeping bag. By week 2, Carl burned pages of his diary in the stove to stay warm. "Don't know which hurts more," he wrote on April 22nd, "the cold or the dread." His last entry, April the 25th, was a single line: "I think I've packed everything." No mention of hope, no mention of rescue. The park search and rescue team flew with Jennett on May the 1st. Watkins still recalls the moment they spotted lean-to-roof through broken clouds. "We flew low," Watkins said. "Saw a shotgun propped by the door, his pack inside. No body, just footprints leading into scrub willows, and stopped abruptly." They searched on foot. No sign of Carl, no discarded gear, no tracks through snow or mud. The footprints vanished as though swallowed by the land itself. Watkins closed his eyes. The worst part, we heard, faintly, his radio crackle. "I'm moving south, following the creek," and then nothing. Watkins and SAR manuals agree. A man in survival clothing, 3 pounds of rations left, can last maybe 2 or 3 days, more if he forgoes. But in that scrub willow maze, thick brush, hidden holes filled with freezing meltwater, movements were slow, energy spent high. Carl's only protein source was a handful of fish he caught in glacier pools. Rain turned both midday and midnight to one unending grey. Temperatures dipped to 25 Fahrenheit, wind tearing at any exposed skin. By Carl's own account, each day felt like 2. His shotgun made him feel safe, but bears hibernate in spring. Wolves keep distance from humans but feast on carrion. No natural predator, it seems, got him. It was the elements, the creeping cold, the endless trudge through mud that sucked boots off. Rangers pieced together Carl's final likely route. He left the lean-to on April the 27th, heading south along a tributary of the Colleen River. His search reached a gravel airstrip used by hunters in summer 50 miles away. Watkins sighed. "Too far, but he was desperate. Evidence: a shattered film canister 2 miles from the lean-to, his camera gear tossed aside. Then a belt buckle, a breakfast spoon, 3 shotgun shells, all within a 10-mile radius. The last trace: a single set of footprints in mud flat leading into a shallow glacier creek. They descended into icy water, then trailed 50 feet under, then vanished. No body, no struggle, nothing. Watkins' voice cracked. He waded in, I think. Thought he could cross and got swept away under the ice. Nobody ever saw or heard of him again. Carl was declared dead in November 1981. His body never found, but his film survived. Janet returned later, recovered the camera from the lean-to. Developed film showed hunting images, ice-fogged valleys, solitary caribou ghosts, a blurred silhouette Carl snapped of himself, standing waist-deep in water, camera held high, stare lost. Watkins refused to look at the last frame. It's like he knew he was done, he said. The officer ranger report, redacted in '82, notes: cause, exposure and drowning, accident, no evidence of foul play. Even so, no one truly knows what happened under that ice. Every spring, a search team revisits the lean-to. Ice warms the mud, water recedes, new clues vanish, old clues dissolve in the sun. In 2005, a hunter found 3 bone fragments, too small to ID, analysis inconclusive. In 2018, a survey drone recorded a tougher parka fur on a distant slope, and nothing else. Rangers whisper that Denali's wilderness doesn't forgive. One wrong step, one missed call, one failed booking, and you become part of the park's ghost stories. If you're hearing this, it means I survived long enough to tell it. Carl McCunn didn't, but each spring, when the ice cracks and the flow returns, I swear I can still hear his camera shutter echoing through the tundra. If you made it this far, maybe you're not like the others. Hit subscribe and I'll keep the stories coming. We heard her screams in the swamp, then nothing. When we waded in, we found only blood and broken reeds, and a set of tracks that shouldn't belong to any animal. I first met Ranger Lopez at a swamp patrol station of Highway 41. He was the one who answered our call in July 2017. You don't have to call us in for a cottonmouth bite, he said gravely. What's really wrong? The scenario: 3 friends, Julia, Mark and Emily, camping on a remote hammock island miles from any road. They hiked in via kayak, leaving their car at a ranger checkpoint. They were seasoned campers, no novice mistakes. They carried bear cans for food, wore long pants against mosquitoes, and kept a satellite phone for emergencies. Then, on night 2, they heard screams. Julia described it later to Lopez. It sounded like someone being strangled. A high-pitched, gurgling cry, lasted maybe 10 seconds, and then silence. They rushed to the swamp's edge, headlamps slicing through mangrove roots and knee-deep water. I waded in up to my waist, Mark told Lopez. The water was cold. I saw reeds snap like toothpicks and bright red spots across the muck. Blood. But Julia's boots were gone, Emily said. She'd waded out barefoot. They called her name. No answer. Paddled the kayak around the hammock. No sign. By dawn, they checked every mangrove alley within a half-mile. No Julia. Ranger Lopez arrived with a High-Clear Marsh Patrol, the only team brave enough. They scanned the mud with UV lights. Blurred splatters, sure, Lopez said later, voice low. But the tracks, that's what got me. He sketched them. 3-foot-long, diamond-shaped scales, half-inch gaps between. Not her boot, not an alligator's track. A snake's, a massive python. Everglades had a booming invasive Burmese python population by 2017. Some estimated 30 to 100,000 adults, but no documented python attacks on people until Julia. Back at the station, Lopez pulled out case files. 2013, hikers found half-gnawed hog remains in a canoe, python coils nearby. 2015, small dog disappeared on Hammock Island. Owner recovered muddy, python scale marked prints. 2016, boy rescued from a canal, constrictor marks on torso, never officially reported. Each time, rangers quietly destroyed the snake. No media, no press. But Julia's case was different. A person, no body, just blood and scales. 3 days later, Lopez led a marsh patrol back to the site at dawn. "We have thermal scopes," he said, "but the deeper you go in, the more dappled the heat. We lost her fast." They found her phone 200 yards from camp, screen shattered, waterlogged. They downloaded last photos, a selfie, a Julia smiling in the tent, a shot of the canoe tied at dawn, a final image, her boot, half buried in muck, scales glinting behind. Then, no images of the swamp itself. Lopez's team fanned out. At midday, one ranger stumbled on a python track leading into a deeper marsh. They trailed it a quarter mile until reaching a shallow pool. "We waded in," Lopez said, "found her DSLR bag floating, lenses smashed, and the blood, pools of it. No Julia, no remains." Lopez's official search and rescue report dated July 22, 2017 reads in part, "Suspected constrictor attack, no remains recovered. Witness accounts confirm large snake presence. Pathogenesis of disappearance suggests pythality and subsequent submersion of remains." But the team found more. Disturbed logs up to 5 feet long, signs of extreme force. Broken reeds, woven in a crude ring, like a trap set to contain a large animal. A small campsite downstream, new footprints, as if someone had taken her bag and walked away. Lopez mused, if it was only the python, why the footprints? Who else was there? Julia's disappearance rattled the park. Families demanded closure, invasive species programs, python hunts. Later that year, rangers eradicated over 2,000 pythons in hunts, but still, footprints of those rare, massive snakes remain hard to identify. Lopez still patrols the swamp. He says at night, on a full moon, he sometimes hears a hiss echoing through the sawgrass. And if you check the case files, Julia's remains are still listed as missing. Even now, some YouTube survival channels speculate, could a 15-foot python drag her under the roots, or something else stalking the swamp? If you're hearing this, it means I survived long enough to tell it. Julia never came out, but every gator eye in the grasses seems to follow my flashlight, and sometimes I hear a whisper in the reeds, a soft, wet hiss. If you made it this far, maybe you're not like the others. Hit subscribe and I'll keep the stories coming. He leaned over the geese railing, felt a shove in the small of his back. No one was behind him. He plunged into boiling water. Our story begins with 3 friends, Mark, Elena and Carlos, all in their late 20s, lifelong outdoor types who set out in June 2004 to hike a week-long loop in Yellowstone's backcountry. They backpacked together in the Tetons, Glacier and the Olympics. This was their first trip through the thermal basins. They arrived at the Lewis Lake trailhead under bright skies, the air crisp with lodgepole pines. Their packs were heavy, tents, stoves, bear spray, electronics minimal. They planned to stay on established backcountry campgrounds, avoiding the boardwalks and the crowds of the upper Gason Basin. On day 3, they left Bridge Creek Camp for Mystic Falls, aiming to skirt Norris Gason Basin at dawn. They'd studied the ranger maps, noted safe crossing points, and reviewed thermal activity notices, but nothing prepared them for what their encounter. Evening of day 3, they pitched camp near Swan Lake, far from any designated site, sake of solitude. Carlos, the most experienced, built a fire while Mark and Elena filtered water. They swapped stories about geyser eruptions they'd seen, laughed about who would shave first on the trip. The mood was light. At around 9 PM, Carlos poked at the embers and said, "I heard something near the creek, splashing." He grabbed his headlight and waded out into darkness. He returned pale-faced. "Must have been a bear," he said, wrangling out his pants, "but it walked upright, like a man." He laughed it off, but neither Mark nor Elena slept well that night. By 6 AM, they were packed and on a trail towards Norris. The sun filtered through steam rising from unseen vents, swinging fractal light across the boardwalks. Though they were off boardwalk on a maintenance trail, they followed caution signs. They emerged at an unmarked lookout above a boiling mud pool. Mark, ever the photographer, sat his camera over the railing and knelt to capture the swirling cauldron below. Elena and Carlos leaned close, marveling at the sulphurous steam. Then Mark glanced up. He felt a thud in his lower back, a gentle push, maybe 2 fingers pressure. He stumbled forward. Elena grabbed his arm. He saved himself, but as he did, he heard a faint laugh, like breath through dry reeds. He spun, ready to blast the bear spray cone, but saw nothing. No person, no animal, just steam and a shimmering basin. They continued along the edge, nerves raw. Carlos joked about an angry ghost of Yellowstone, but Mark's smile was forced. They reached a second overlook, this one above a geyser venting 200 Fahrenheit water. Mark knelt again for photos. Elena filmed on her camcorder. Carlos leaned on the railing behind Mark. Suddenly, bunk. Stronger this time. Mark flew forward, arm striking the railing. He twisted his left wrist on impact, pain seared. He looked up, heart pounding. Carlos was nowhere behind him. Elena's camera fell as she ran back. "Carlos!" she screamed. Mark held his wrist as Elena peered over the railing. Below, a perfectly round depression of clay and steam. No sign of disturbance beyond Mark's fallen tripod. Carlos had vanished. Elena and Mark radioed park headquarters. Rangers arrived within an hour, fast for backcountry. A squad of 4 rangers combed the boardwalk and the forest edge. They found Carlos's boots neatly placed side by side at the railing, his day pack zipped open, water bottle missing. No footprints on the clay bar around the geyser, despite the fresh rain. No blood, no struggle, no bear prints. Ranger Thompson's report. Subject last seen kneeling at railing. Witness describes feeling a shove. No other ranger or visitor in vicinity. No mechanical failings or railings defects. They expanded the search grid, even draining small runoff streams, setting up thermal cameras. All night, all day, no Carlos. For weeks afterward, Mark and Elena returned to that spot, bringing flowers, photos of Carlos, messages in the mud. Mark insisted the railing was solid, no loose boards, no gaps. Elena heard whispers in the steam, "Help me," but wind obscured voices. Months later, a hunter found Carlos's day pack 1.8 miles north in a meadow untouched by thermal activity. Inside, journal entries, camera memory card, but no cameras. Boot prints around it, but one boot was missing. Rangers tested DNA on boot fragments, definitely Carlos's, but nothing else was found. Yellowstone's internal investigation concluded, unexplained disappearance, possible accidental fall into thermal vent, though no remains recovered, no evidence of foul play by third party. Rangers implemented stricter barriers and signage that season, boardwalk extensions, sensors on certain vents, but no closure. The trail remains open. Visitors stroll freely where Carlos fell. Mark refuses to return. Elena leads guided hikes and warns clients of the push. She recorded 3 audio clips on her phone late at night when steam cools. The first, a soft thump like fingers on a door. The second, a snarl, animal or mechanical. The third, a whisper, "Not here." They replay the same site on maps in digital laser scan. The railing appears pristine, no cracks, no human presence, just the earth, the steam, and the unnerving drop into boiling water. If you're hearing this, it means I survived long enough to tell it. Carlos never resurfaced, but sometimes, when I pass a hot spring, I feel a hand at my back, and I pray it's not too late to step away. If you made it this far, maybe you're not like the others. Hit subscribe and I'll keep the stories coming. He told his family he'll be back by dawn. Rangers found his pack and boots, but no body, not a trace. The backcountry of the Great Smokies draws hikers with promises of ancient forests, mist-cloaked ridges, and the chance to conquer Mount Lakota. In August 1973, Arthur Jenkins, 29, decided to make that climb alone in one day, trailhead to summit and back before sunrise. Arthur was an experienced day hiker, trail runner even. He mapped out the route, start at Alum Cave, ascend 3,700 feet and shoot sunrise photos from cliff top, descend via Rainbow Falls and return by midnight. He told his parents at a family barbecue, "Don't wake up, I'll be home by dawn." But by 4 AM, no Arthur. By 6 AM, his parents called park headquarters. Ranger Miller led the search party at first light. They combed the Alum Cave trail, marked, well trodden, finding no sign of Arthur. They expanded north towards cliff top. At 9 AM, they found his day pack on a shaded ledge 500 feet from the summit. Pack unzipped, camera missing, wallet inside, boots neatly placed beside the pack, laces untied, a half-eaten granola bar, a single Polaroid en route. Arthur perched on a rock, waving at the lens, backdropped by morning mist. Below that photograph was scrawled in ink, "Keep going." Ranger Miller frowned. He could have taken a break, but leaving boots behind? That's rare. Miller's team scored the marked route. No Arthur, no tracks, grass and leaves untouched. It was as if he stepped off the trail into thin air. They followed faint impressions of bare footprints leading towards an unmarked game trail, a deer path weaving into thick plants. It vanished after 50 yards. Miller radioed for tracking dogs. They arrived at noon. A German shepherd named Scout picked up his scent, then lost it at a fallen log. No crossing, no disturbance, just logs as old as memory. That afternoon, Miller charted a larger grid. A helicopter buzzed overhead. Spotters reported no sign. Then, at 3:15 PM, Scout darted across a clearing and stopped. There, half buried in a bed of ferns, was Arthur's camera. Sinar 4x5 view camera, heavy metal, its lens cap off as if recently used. The film inside was intact. When developed later, the film revealed a shot of cliff top at golden hour, trees lit in fiery orange, a second frame of Arthur's face close to the lens, eyes wide, mouth open in a silent scream. Frames 3 and 5, blank or obscured by water droplets, no photo of his descent. Rangers camped at the trailhead in shifts, fearing the mountain's nighttime predators, black bears, mountain lions, but no growls, No crashes. Silence. By day 2, they widened the search to Caldwell Fork and Indian Creek trails. Volunteers hiked every spur. Pilots flew overhead with infrared cameras. No thermal hotspot. No sign of a body. On day 3, a ranger found a handwritten note inside Arthur's daypack pocket. Need to find what's calling me. Be back soon. It was dated that morning. Park officers scratched their heads. Arthur was never one for cryptic messages. Ranger Miller wrote in his log, suggests he ventured purposely off trail, possibly chasing something. Animal? Light? A vision? Recommended caution for future services in unmarked territory. 11 days later, a group of Boy Scouts retraced the deer path, part of an Eagle Scout merit project. They found a makeshift shelter, 4 fallen saplings propped against a boulder and branches woven as cover. Inside, Arthur's socks, neatly folded. A half-eaten apple. Tiny footprints, no bigger than a toddler's. A line of small stones leading into a narrow fissure into the rock. Rangers pried open the fissure, mere inches wide, darkness beyond. They didn't enter. Miller again. Too tight. Could be a claustrophobia borehole. Searched outside perimeter. Nothing more found. Decades later, Arthur's disappearance remains a top cold case in the park. No remains, no conclusive theory. Visitors still hike to cliff top, leaving small tokens at the ledge. A compass here, a pocket knife there. At night, near that deer path clearing, hikers report a soft voice calling their name. Footsteps behind them, but never catching a figure. And a sudden drop in temperature, even in the summer. Ranger Miller retired in 1995 but returns each August, placing a Polaroid of Arthur, smiling, waving, in a small shrine near the trailhead. If you're hearing this, it means I survived long enough to tell it. Arthur never returned, but on misty mornings, I still swear I see his figure on cliff top, watching, waiting.